So who can forget Morbin?
Yeah, it's Morbin time.
It actually Morbin time never happened. The movie was a miserable flop.
Yeah.
And in one of the funniest bits of playing a company ever, all the people on TikTok and Twitter and YouTube convinced Sony that okay, there's this ironic love of this movie that's coming out of nowhere. Let's re-release it in theaters. I think in like 800. Actually, why speculate wildly when we can look it up?
Yes.
I think it made 200,000 that last weekend uh, domestically in in a little over 1,000 theaters. Yeah, $85 a screen, and that isn't per showing. That's
Yeah.
that's per screen taken up over that day.
Oof.
Nobody went back to see this thing.
No. Yeah, and from what I've heard, it's very silly, fun movie. And I have, of course, I haven't watched it yet. It is
No,
on Netflix.
if we can get to 100 subscribers, we'll review it.
Yes. Sony Films is being run by more morons than WB.
Yeah. All right. So actually, no, Morbius was Sony
Oh, Sony, yeah, Morbius is Sony. Yeah,
because it's a Spider-Man spinoff. Um,
yeah,
Boy, Daniel, it seems like unless you're Venom, it doesn't work out to have a spin-off movie starring a villain before you introduce that villain in the hero's movie. Let's
yeah,
let's put a pin in that.
yeah. Yes.
Speaking of villains, also we had the Johnny Depp defamation trial, where Johnny Depp mostly won.
Yeah, and as well he should, because you know Amber Heard's a despicable person and did a lot of really horrible things to him, and almost destroyed his career, and got him fired from Disney, and you know, so yeah, it was a heck of a thing to follow and watch, and I'm glad it turned out the way that it did. And from what I
Yep.
hear, it's over now because she dropped her appeal. So
I think they also settled out of court for a
mhm,
lesser amount of money because it was
yeah,
never really about the money. It was more about the headlines. Johnny Depp wins,
yes,
so that he can actually go out and do some things.
yeah. And speaking of like Disney with Jack Sparrow, they're slowly trying to work him back in because yes, I was at Disney World this last weekend for Christmas, and when I was at when I was going over to Pirates of the Caribbean ride, they had a guy out there dressed up like Jack Sparrow, so getting pictures and signing autographs. So take that for
Inter
what you will.
Yeesh, what is going on in this video?
I don't know. I was thinking that too. That's
OnlyFans mom
OnlyFans model attacks
boyfriend.
boyfriend. Oh,
Okay,
God.
so I guess I could see how the website thought that was related to there, but still, that would
Yeah.
man. Watch out for people who don't think that the consequences apply to them.
Oh yeah.
Also, yeah, Holy Ninja says the thing about the Amber Heard stuff that sticks with me is the crapping the bed thing. It just goes to show,
Yeah.
no matter how angry you are at somebody, think about what would that sound like if a court stenographer was having to read back, stenographer, please read back the transcript. Yes, she then defecated in the bed. It's like at my job, I tell people, don't put anything in a tech ticket that you wouldn't be comfortable with a lawyer reading in front of a small claims court.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's yeah. This yeah. This whole thing was just a massive cluster. You know what? And
Yep. Made a
you
lot
know
of money for LawTube, though.
yes, it did. And yeah, and guys like Andy Signor and that Umbrella guy, and you know,
Ricada.
Ricada. Yeah, they did very well for themselves covering this covering the trial.
Yep.
Yeah,
And honestly, I thought that it was going to be a nothing burger all those years, but shows what I know.
yeah. But yeah,
In more strictly entertainment news, the Warner Brothers Discovery merger was completed.
yes, and yeah, and oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that Johnny Depp got fired from the
Yes.
Fantastic Beasts movie. Yeah, just
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, and Amber Heard's still in Aquaman 2.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, we'll get to it in a second.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that was a that was a big unfair thing. Though to be fair, that Fantastic Beasts movie was an enormous bomb too earlier this year,
that's true. Yeah, uh,
which is part of why which is why part of why AT&T reverse sold Discovery to Warner Brothers. Or excuse me,
yes,
reverse sold Warner Brothers to Discovery.
Discovery. Yeah, yeah, and David Zaslav now in charge and making a lot of big changes
Yeah.
in the company.
Some changes have actually pretty much all these changes have been controversial just for different people at different reasons.
Hmm.
For example, why the Batgirl DC's Batgirl movie, which was basically complete at that point,
Yeah,
uh, has been pulled and we'll never see it,
yeah,
including an aged Michael Keaton Batman.
yeah. Which I think that's probably the biggest tragedy in all of this is not getting to see him as Batman again.
Yep, but hey, we'll skip ahead in the year a little bit. The argument people made was, look, the movie's mostly done. Just put it out. What's the worst that can happen? Well, Black Adam easily lost $100 million,
Hmm.
as much as The Rock is trying to spin it.
Yeah,
So imagine, so the budget for Batgirl probably wasn't 200 million, but if it was, oh, it was like 80 million had been spent on it. Imagine probably another 10 million to finish it up, and then uh, the same in
marketing and yeah,
marketing. We're talking a movie that would have to clear 400 million to break even, and you could say, oh, people would go to see Michael Keaton Batman. Well, Henry
yeah,
Cavill Superman was in Black Adam for a little bit.
yeah. Yeah, that didn't. It got a little bit of a bump in that opening weekend.
Yep. And then it died.
Yeah,
But this kind of introduced a lot of people to the idea of opportunity costs, Hollywood accounting, all sorts of interesting things. And of
yeah,
course, yet I'm in the camp of good. We need less rubbish DC properties out there. We need to just have good stuff come out.
yeah.
And then later on in the year, and I don't have a headline for this one, James Gunn. Speaking of James Gunn, was put in charge of DC, and boy, the side that was laughing about DC's Batgirl movie being canceled suddenly was real butthurt about them deciding to recast all of their characters.
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah, I think people kind of tend to overreact to some of some stuff like this,
Hmm?
and with as far as James Gunn goes, like I mean he's obviously just completely rebooting the whole franchise and just putting in new people, which I mean I think he kind of has to do that at this point because the Snyderverse was a bit of a disaster.
Yes, we likened it last week or the last show to Windows Phone in the sense that it was a thing that felt like it should have been a thing, but it never really was. But you heard about it more online than you actually did in reality, like a
Mhm.
reverse Avatar.
Yes, yeah, and going back to what you were saying with Black Adam, Batgirl I think tested or Black Adam tested worse than Batgirl did, didn't it, or something like that?
Yeah,
Or they
there were like
tested
there
the
were
same.
reports of that. Like it was of similar quality
Yeah, yeah, and so
without the big name.
right, and yeah, so people saying, "Oh, we'll just release it." Well, didn't work out too well with Black Adam.
If you're better off taking the accounting loss and being able to write it off.
Hmm. Yeah, and well, and I think Batgirl was supposed to be a HBO Max, straight to HBO Max.
Right? It was conceived of as a straight to HBO Max thing, and then it was like Zaslav was like, "What the hell are you doing? Spending $80 million on something that we're going to put into the money pit that is called streaming."
Yeah, yeah,
Streaming is where things that we already own go, or it's things that you can demonstrably prove bring in new subscribers or retain existing subscribers.
yes, yeah, and yeah, I don't didn't see a whole lot of people uh, signing up for HBO Max for Batgirl.
It's also why you had things that were canceled in animation. Like you had a Scooby movie canceled that was mostly done.
Hmm.
Why was it canceled? Well, because people weren't going to HBO Max for subscriptions or for subscriptions for animation. It's why they got rid of Infinity Train and a few others that adult animation fans were big fans of.
Hmm.
But who wasn't fans of those? Kids, because by and large, HBO Max trends older because what do you know? It's the HBO brand.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, HBO is definitely known for, especially with its original content, known for being for their more adult programming.
Yep. And that's the sad thing of it. It's the dollars and cents.
Hmm. Yeah,
Now this has been paired in coverage with HBO or Warner Brothers Discovery doubles down on Ezra Miller. No.
yeah, no.
So Ezra Miller has been an extremely well, we got a lot of mileage out of Ezra Miller this year between the repeated assaults,
Yes.
uh, the weird cult-like behavior on his farm in the north, or in
Hmm.
Vermont, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, Weird things, and that just you go, okay, if you weren't a name, you would have been uh, charged ages ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's just I God, yeah, yeah, oh look, it's Miller time. Yeah.
Yep, been a while since there hasn't been really any new news.
Yeah, he's been or sorry, they I keep forgetting Ezra Miller is non-binary and uses they them pronouns. Whatever.
Yes, I vacillate whether I respect that in Ezra's case or not.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Um but I just want to throw that disclaimer out there for in
Yes.
case anybody wants to say anything, but I don't care. Um but yeah, Ezra's been very quiet the last few months. I think uh, probably detoxing or in some nice little rehab retreat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because and there was talk at one point of removing Ezra from the Flash via CGI, and back when it looked like they were going to try to keep the Snyderverse going in some form, that made sense to get a
Hmm.
new actor in there. But now it's like, shove it out,
Yeah, yeah,
make
yeah,
whatever money we can off of it, and move on.
yeah. Because I mean, they've already. I think they already did reshoots before.
Yes, that this
Yeah,
movie has been cursed. This
yeah,
Flash movie has been cursed.
yeah. And it's already. I think it's cost them somewhere around $300 million. So I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
this is like Avatar-ish level money.
yeah. So they got to put it out and yeah, like you said, make whatever they can, and then they'll just move on.
Yep.
It's yeah, but yeah, and we said it before. We'll say it again. We want Ezra to get better. We want Ezra to get the help that uh, that they need, and it sounds like that's happening.
Yep.
So
Because well, getting arrested for breaking into a or a neighbor's house to steal alcohol from them.
yeah, and throwing what was it like? Well, of course he had
Well,
Iceland, yeah,
it,
Iceland, where he
the
strangled the
choke
woman,
slam
and
that went viral years ago.
yeah, yeah, and of course Ezra, as they call him on Midnight's Edge, the scourge of Hawaii.
Yeah, I think the police were called in like at least on 12 separate occasions.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's ridiculous.
yeah, and yeah, so a lot of weird stuff
Mm.
around Ezra, and yeah, it'll be interesting what will happen with Ezra going forward. So,
Yeah, it's almost like Al Capone and tax evasion. You couldn't get Ezra on the multiple assaults, the
burglary, the yeah,
breaking, but no, it was still like, oh, multiple women were almost killed by
uh,
Ezra's
yeah,
antics.
yeah, yeah,
But no, the neighbor's booze that we caught on camera, that we can prove.
yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, let's see here. According to
So,
Wikipedia, resulting in multiple widely publicized arrests and claims, and has also been accused of a word that YouTube doesn't like: minors.
mm,
Speaking of a thing that YouTube doesn't like,
yeah, yes,
so
Lightyear. Yeah.
Lightyear has a larger political context involving Ron DeSantis and the vastly Republican legislature of Florida smacking Disney's special tax district away from them, in
Hmm.
part because they said, "Oh well, we came up with this law, which I'm not going to get into that bill, but we don't like
Hmm.
that law, so we're going to stop donating to Republicans." Which, politics being what it is, that's basically says, "Oh, so you have no leverage over us? Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can't make you happy anyway."
Yeah, yeah, and apparently they're either renegotiating that or they aren't. I'm not really entirely sure. I keep hearing that they are.
So probably what they the sweetheart deal that they've had since the '60s, which basically made them a minor kingdom in Florida,
Right.
is probably gone. They might be able to wiggle their way into a better negotiation or a better deal than Universal or whoever gets, but it sounds like that's basically done. But
Okay.
part of that is for years now, the people at Pixar have been complaining. We put overt examples of gay affection in movies. Disney keeps cutting it out for international markets or
Mhm.
removing it entirely, and we're tired of it. And they tied it up with the brouhaha around this bill.
Right.
And so they kind of had no choice but to leave it in the new Lightyear movie. And it's also the first and only thing that many people heard about that Lightyear movie.
Yep. And of course they highlighted it pretty well, in with all the promotion and marketing and everything. So it whether that hurt the movie or not, it hurt it internationally because it didn't get released in a lot of countries.
Yep. And in others, they had warnings about the movie containing identity politics.
Hmm. Yeah, I believe Mexico was one of those countries.
Yeah, it was definitely Latin America, somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and but yeah, this movie, yeah, Lightyear was a massive flop. Um, it cost 200 million to make. I think it made its budget back, um, but that's it.
Well, let's find out. I don't. I forget if it broke 100 million. Okay, it made 218
Okay.
uh, and sold fewer discs than Demon Slayer Mugen Train.
Oof.
Um, but since you only get back like half of what you put in, or half or less,
Hmm.
yeah, it might have gotten back half of its production budget less marketing.
Yeah, and I can honestly say because I watched this movie uh, on Disney Plus, it's terrible. It's really bad, and yeah, I did it on a thing of the week whenever that was.
You poor man.
Yeah, I know. And if you go back and you watch that, not once did I mention the identity politics in my review of it. It was all about the story and the characters and everything around it. It was just really bad.
Yep. And this was at a time when Minions was raking in the dough,
Hmm.
having cost less than half to make.
Yep. And yeah, and it dropped on Disney Plus pretty quickly, if I recall, like 2 months after the
It might
less
have been
than 2 months,
45 days.
45 days. Yeah. So yeah, 6 weeks after being released in theaters. Yeah, it just I mean, well, that's the thing. Like when you push something like that really hard, and of course, when you push something like really hard, people are going to push back, and that could be a
Mhm.
theme from 2022. That the pushback on agendas, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Uh, like I was just thinking about it. Like, let's say that I was, um, let's say that I was talking about a character in a story, and I mentioned in order, they are a starship captain, decorated war hero. They lost a leg fighting the alien scourge, and now they are convinced that the alien scourge is returning, but nobody will listen. So they're trying to assemble their old crew to get back together. And this is just a story I'm spitballing off the top of my head, but it doesn't sound
Hmm.
bad actually.
No,
Oh,
no, it sounds pretty
and they
good.
also
Yeah.
happen to be gay. That's like a data point about them, but it's not the first thing you're going to think about. Oh, they're a starship captain, and
Hmm.
this, that, and the other. The way that they keep doing it is, oh, this character is gay.
Yeah.
The character is gay. Oh, and there's something about it. There's something at space in there, but watch it because it's gay.
Yeah.
One of them is a premise for a story. The other one is identity.
Yes. Yeah, and Identity does not sell movie tickets.
Right. People think it does because of Black Panther, but Black Panther sold movie tickets because it was a at least decent movie that people with a character that people thought was cool in Captain America. So
Yeah, and part of an uh, overarching franchise.
that was getting to its fever pitch.
Yes.
So no, it wasn't the identity that sold Black Panther, just that Black Panther sold identity.
Yeah.
To put it ironically.
Yeah. Same with Captain Marvel.
Yep, one of those is actually worth watching.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, well, and overall, I mean, I know we'll probably get into this. You know, we'll get into it, but like this wasn't a very good year for Disney.
No, and to be fair, Bob Chapek had a rough go of it. I mean, he got in just as COVID was happening, suspiciously close to when COVID was happening.
Hmm.
Uh, but he had to deal with all these people who were Bob Iger loyalists. Disney was divided up into a bunch of little fiefdoms, and each head of the studio was in charge of their own stuff, and he had to fight them a bunch uh, over stupid things like, Scarlett Johansson sued them because they were putting her movie straight to streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything underperformed, but it's COVID, so that's understandable. And it's not like he had much influence over these movies. Lightyear was greenlit and conceived during the Iger era, but hey, you know what? They finally got a lot of the junk out of the way. They've proven that you have these so-called woke movies that are underperforming. And Bob Chapek is not a conservative man by all recollections. I think he's actually a staunch Democrat, but he's
Hmm.
a money man, so he'll go in there. And this is like what I kept hearing on all these YouTube channels that were analyzing Disney.
Hmm.
He finally has what he needs to go in there. He's been upped for another 3 years, so it's all smooth sailing. We're going to see some improvement, and in the middle of the night,
Yeah. On a Sunday, no less.
on a Sunday night,
Yeah. Yes.
Bob
Yeah.
Iger was brought in as Bob Chapek was announcing a hiring freeze that would have likely gutted a lot of Disney.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 Well, again, yeah, they got rid of they had the old boss and he left, and then they brought in a new boss. They got rid of him, and now they got the old boss again.
It's seriously one of the more surreal things because I was watching one I was catching up on a Valiant Renegade stream from earlier in the day, and then I look at my YouTube app and I like, what, that headline has to be fake. There's another Valiant Renegade stream at this time of night. What's going on? It
Yeah.
wasn't fake.
Yeah. Yeah, poor Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, he was kind of running the parks into the ground with lack of maintenance, but on the other hand, Iger had just spent 70 billion with a B dollars to acquire Fox.
Yeah. And and it, and by all accounts overpaid.
Yep. Basically, Comcast took the bidding to ridiculous levels
Yeah.
because everybody's like, "Oh, streaming is the future. All the money is in streaming."
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Uh,
so, so basically, if the if what its name, if Zaslav's lot is equivalent to running a shop and finding out that the previous owner had overpaid on a bunch of food that's about to expire, so you sell what you can and junk what you can't.
mhm.
Disney Bob Chapek's situation was you buy somebody's shop, they have a bunch of rancid food that you're trying to sell because you can't afford to junk it. You will literally go tilt because,
Mhm.
and also they maxed out all of the corporate credit cards before they left.
Yeah.
And then they come back and convince the other shop owners, no, things were better when I was around. We need to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it's and the cynical conspiracy theorist in me wonders if this wasn't just all planned from the beginning.
Yeah, it might explain why Bob took his severance package and hasn't really. Chapek has taken his severance package and hasn't really made any public statements that I'm aware of.
No, he hasn't said. Yeah, he's been quiet. Yeah, it's
It makes you wonder if he was in on it.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, what was so uh, weird to me were all these people just coming out and they know who, and I mean, I'm talking about people like Midnight's Edge who were very pro Chapek.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just didn't see it. I didn't. Yeah, I never saw what that Chapek was going to be this big savior of Disney. I didn't see it.
Well, I think that in your case, I'm sitting on the armchair watching these videos, which kind of was influencing how I was perceiving events. But also, I wasn't going into the parks and seeing the awful state they were in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a bit reminiscent of the later years of Michael Eisner. Like Eisner did the same thing. Like he really let the parks just fall apart, and going in there and it was just like, oh, like you go in, like a ride would be, and it I hate to say it, it hadn't gotten much better. Like I mean, when I was just there,
Mm-hmm.
I would go into a park and start of the day, one of the popular rides would be down. Like it was, I mean, that was pretty much every day I was there. Like one of the popular
Mm.
rides would be down, and that's a normal thing.
Right.
And
Which, when
yeah,
people are taking out basically mortgages to go see to Disneyland for a once in a lifetime trip,
oh yeah,
that is not
yeah,
acceptable.
yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example of this. When I was, my dad and I, we were waiting in line for Guardians of the Galaxy, um, and there was a family right behind us who were.
I'm still here. Just I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I'm still here. Can still hear you. Just turning off the camera a sec.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so my dad and I, we were waiting in line for Guardians of the Galaxy, and there was a family behind us from Scotland, and for them, yeah, this was a once in a lifetime trip for them, and it cost them, it cost them £10,000 for a family of four, for the four of them to go to Disney World, which is in American dollars, it's about 12, 13 grand. And so, which actually isn't that bad if you know anything about like spending with Disney. But especially international travel. But I mean, but that's the thing, like, you know, when you have a family like that, coming all the way from Europe, and there were a lot of foreigners there, by the way, when we were at Disney World, like there were a lot of people from different countries at the parks, and for the vast majority of them, yeah, that's a once in a lifetime trip, and the parks need to be at 100%, and with Chapek, it wasn't really like that, and you know, and and then of course you had Lightning Lane that they put in, which if you want to get on a ride, you have to pay money for it, which in the past that was free, and it's just and of course it's just yeah, and, the way the parks have been, it's just really I mean, under Chapek, I mean, he was really nickel and diming it the entire time, and
Yep.
it looks like it's might start getting a little bit better, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. Well, he kind of came in and made his or made his changes to try and make some money to subsidize the ridiculous amounts of money they've been spending on streaming and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and now that I think about it, that's probably what really did him in was everything that went wrong with Disney Plus, just getting that going.
Yep. Now a lot of it was set in advance, but what it sounds like is that so people like Midnight's Edge had been talking about how Kareem Daniels was a really valuable resource because he was a money man who was there to basically rein in the studio heads. Like, okay, this is going to streaming, this is going to theaters.
Hmm.
And that's a good idea in theory to have merchandising be in charge of certain aspects of the creative process. What it really sounds like is that they picked a bad person for the job.
Mm.
Because, things like Hocus Pocus 2, Disenchanted, Prey.
Yeah,
Like we reviewed Prey. Prey would have at least done all right in theaters.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, that was a good movie. Not a great movie, but I mean, yeah, I mean that could have done well if it had been released in theaters. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not having seen Predator 2, I can't judge people saying it was the second best Predator movie, but yeah, it's a bit possible. At least it's probably a lot of people's top three now,
Oh yeah.
which is more an indictment of the rest of the Predator franchise. But still,
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't say anything about Hocus Pocus 2 or Disenchanted, but if they had put Disenchanted, at least Disenchanted in theater. Of course, I heard Disenchanted wasn't that good, but
uh, oh well, Avatar 2 doesn't sound like it's that good, and it's made $1 billion.
that's true. Yeah, but I mean, I think Disenchanted could have done well if they had put it in theaters.
Yeah, it would have been something for families.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I remember when I was watching TV with my parents, and the ad for the movie came on, and my dad's like, "Oh, that movie's going to make a lot of money," and I said, "No, they're putting it on Disney Plus. They're putting it on Disney Plus," and he's like, "Why are they doing that?"
Uh, yeah, and I think that covers the Bob swap. It's
Yeah,
just basically
yeah,
new boss, same as the old boss.
yeah,
New, and it kind of shows that just because I think an accountant would look at Bob Chapek's tenure and want him out.
hmm.
Like we can see maneuvers and political machinations and things like that, but if you just look at it as dollars and cents, that was an awful stewardship.
It was, yeah, yeah, and I can also tell you too, going back to the parks, the cast members hated Chapek.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad actually, I think when a couple of weeks ago we went there. I went there with my parents, and there was a meme of Chapek, where he's one of the headstones from Haunted Mansion, and
Oh.
my dad and we were eating lunch at one of the restaurants. My dad showed that meme to one of the wait to our waiter, and he he got a real kick out of it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So so let's kind of looking at the year behind us.
Hmm.
Um, I would say that there. Sad about this. I didn't go to see all that many new movies.
Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
either. Yeah.
a lot of what we caught was on streaming.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say this was a bad year for Marvel
Hmm.
and for Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Was Book of Boba Fett
I,
2022?
I think Book of Boba Fett was tail end of last year.
Okay. Well, that Book of Boba Fett was horrible. But and so was Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah.
I didn't bother wasting the brain cells on that, but it just sounded miserable.
It was. It, it broke me when it comes to Star Wars. Like I'm just done.
Which seems to have happened to a lot of people, seeing as how Andor didn't really make any waves.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, it's a good show, although it's slow.
Yep, it sounds like it's almost like you have 2 episodes of build up, payoff, 2 episodes of build up, payoff.
Yeah, yeah.
But but it shows you how desperate they were to make fetch happen. That you haven't seen Mandalorian air episodes on ABC and Hulu
No,
to try to lure people in. Maybe it should have.
yeah, yeah. Maybe it should have, but of course, well, they probably think they don't need to with that show because everybody loves the Mandalorian. Um, that's the only good thing they got going right now.
Yeah, at least the only profitable thing.
Yeah, um, but yeah, like as far as like other stuff, I mean, we were talking before the stream. I think we both agree the best show or the best movie of the year, Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, the,
Yeah,
as far as like Hollywood released to theaters things that I've seen, that's number one.
yeah. And yeah, Nijito says long-lasting franchises had a terrible year. Yeah, video game franchises on the other hand killed it. Mostly Sonic. Yeah, Sonic was good. Yeah,
Yeah, it sounds like it was at least a 7 out of 10, which grading on the Sonic curve is an 11 out of 10.
yeah. uh, and I will say we talked about it earlier, but for me, the worst movie of the year was Lightyear.
That's your worst movie I actually subjected myself to. Probably, hmm. Yeah, probably Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Yeah, I would put that one's an honorable mention for worst. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
yeah that movie. Yeah, that movie was not that it was not a sequel to Doctor Strange. It was a sequel to WandaVision.
Yeah, which I so I think we can so we kind of have our top and bottoms there. I think the biggest casualty of 2022 was the whole streaming model,
Hmm.
at least the way it's been handled now, because suddenly financial analysts switched from counting subscribers to show me the money.
Yep.
Uh, as soon as Netflix actually had a net loss of subscribers for the first time ever, the whole narrative changed.
Yeah, and yeah, we talked about we did a special video about streaming, and there's a very good chance that bubble's probably going to pop here pretty soon.
Like I was listening to Midnight's Edge, and do you know how many original shows Netflix put out in 2022?
How many?
430 something. Yeah, we're not talking episodes, which is what Bob Chato thought that they were talking about. No,
Yeah,
430 original shows.
shows.
Yes.
Good God.
There is not enough time in the now, of course, they're targeting different audiences,
True.
but still, there's not enough time for anybody. Like, how can anybody be doing any quality control? How
Yeah,
can you make money off of that?
you can't. Uh, and and of all those shows, and of out of all those shows that people would be watching, how many of them just said, "Screw it, I'm going to watch Stranger Things again."
Yeah. Or, oh, new Stranger Things season. Oh, I really like that going up that hill song. boom, she gets her first number one.
Yeah.
Laura Bush or is either Laura Bush got her first number one, or Laura Bush became the oldest person to ever have a number one song on in just general.
Yeah, yeah. Ninja Toast says it doesn't help that streaming gained popularity because of and yeah. 2020 was a good year for it because everybody was stuck inside, and
Hmm.
now everybody's going outside and not
Yep.
watching as much.
Yep. Even if you stay in, you might not be watching streaming. The other thing is that
Hmm.
there's too many darned streaming platforms.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's got to have their own streaming platform, and it's getting kind of confusing.
Sony kind of was the smart studio in that they're just selling their stuff to other people. Like they own Cobra Kai, which is another big hit for Netflix,
Hmm.
and they just got a nice check from Netflix for making it that offset their costs.
Yeah, that's and I think probably pretty soon more studios are going to be doing that.
If only because they have to. They either go tilt or they drop their streaming platforms.
Yeah. And Ninja Toe also said here 2022 video gaming had a lot of projects that was development hell with mixed results.
Right, you got Starfield,
Yeah,
which I'm not excited about that one, but I'm not a Bethesda guy anyway.
yeah, yeah. I'll be honest. I've been kind of out of it on the video game front. I need to get back into that a little bit more.
Yeah, although the one subscription service that seems to actually be working out for people is Game Pass of all things.
Mm,
Uh, and you'd think that they would be losing huge amounts of money on it, and it's not clear if it's net profitable on its own. But I think that Game Pass kind of shows what you could do with a service like Netflix.
yeah.
Um, th- like Netflix or Game Pass makes Microsoft a lot of money because, well, first off, the average revenue per month is pretty good, $15.
Yeah.
But they also they have a lot of rewards for participating with the service. Like I get a few bucks a month for playing, or in Xbox credit that I can spend on things
Oh.
because I do their challenges. But the biggest thing is that the people who are big on Game Pass are buying other games too,
Hmm.
because you can games that are in Game Pass you can just buy to own digitally for 20% off. People who have Game Pass tend to play more games, more variety of games. They tend to buy a lot of DLC for the games they're playing.
Mm, yeah.
So uh, it's a way to get people hyper going with it.
Yeah. That actually sounds really good. I think I might have to do that.
Uh, uh, I might have a hookup.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like the Game Pass has been killing it, and one of the things that killed was Stadia,
Oh yeah, yeah.
uh, which shows the how you can have basically the same product and in some ways arguably the superior product in terms of actual latency and performance tests if the business model is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very true. Ninja Toes, Gotham Knights was a victim.
I forgot that game came out.
Yeah, I did too. Bayonetta 3, that was another one. Yeah, that's another
Uh,
one.
was Bayonetta 3 actually bad? I just knew it had a controversy because the voice actress lying about things.
Yeah, that's all I heard about that. Uh, and yeah, Game Pass best budget option. Yeah.
And actually, I think that's another great example of how you don't want to, you don't win people over by saying, "Hey, this movie is about a gay space captain."
Yeah.
Uh, you, in the same way, you don't win people over when the first thing they hear about your game is, "Hey, they stiffed the voice actress."
Yeah.
Even if you, oops, even if you find out later that was a lie, oh
Yeah.
well. You've already associated it with not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You okay there?
Yeah, I just so I hit this with my knee, and it's just
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah,
I'm not
I've
used to
done that.
sitting in
Yeah.
this position.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've Going
Well, let's
over
see.
everything here.
So, since we're so good at predictions,
Oh yeah, okay.
let's do our bold predictions for 2023.
Okay.
So, um, and this is just me coming up with it on the spot. I have put you on the spot, so
Okay.
no, so you can come up with as many or as few as you like.
Okay. So I will say bold prediction. Well, I don't know how bold it is, but I'm gonna say Peacock is going to go under. Um, I think we're going to get a brand new sometime in 2023. The brand new DC cast will be announced,
Hmm.
along with the new Superman movie. Um, I think we're probably okay. Okay, here's a bold prediction.
Okay.
Kathleen Kennedy will be gone from Lucasfilm
Okay.
in
And,
some way. I don't know.
and
I know. Yeah.
we'll say this prediction is good if she is no longer with the company on December 31st of 2023.
Yes. Okay, and yeah, I think that's all I got.
My bold predictions. I think that the Flash movie will do as badly or worse than Black Adam,
Mm,
because while the Flash is a better known character than Black Adam, Ezra is also very toxic.
hmm
I think the remaining Snyderverse-ish DC properties that come out are all going to tank, and that's going to be expected, and nobody will care
hmm
because they will shove them out to die.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to see. I don't. Peacock would be like at the top of my list. That would probably go under.
hmm
I think we're going to see. We'll probably see at least one of the major streaming services merge or spin off or do something to lessen its burden.
hmm
We'll definitely see it. This isn't like a bold prediction because it's already been announced, but we're going to see a rise in advertising on streaming to try and make some extra money,
hmm
which will have the indirect effect of lowering ad rates on YouTube for everyone.
Yeah.
I think that YouTube, as part of its bid to own more media, is going to come out with some sort of real competitor to something like Tubi or Pluto,
mm
where they make it much easier. Like, hey, here's just a bunch of free stuff you can watch. But as part of it, they will remove the ability to thumbs up and thumbs down, and you won't be able to see how many views something has actually had
mm
to protect the egos of it. And if this is successful, then we might start seeing things come straight to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And, and then I think, let's see here. So those are, I think that Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 is going to do all right because it seems to actually have some buzz around it.
hmm
But yeah, I think that's what I got. Basically, the old DC lineup is being shoved out to just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
It's like when the Sega Dreamcast was coming out and the Saturn was a huge bust, and they basically said, "Look, we need the warehouse space. If we were going to make a profit on it, we would have already sold it already."
Yeah.
$49 consoles that cost us $400 to make. Go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, D. Ryan says might see a big rise in indie movies. I think you're right. Just because
hmm
there's been so little content that's actually been going into the theaters. Because think about all the content droughts we've had.
Yeah.
You're going to start to, if an enterprising company could start going around and saying, hey, if we bundle a bunch of these indie movies and just like give them like 2 week slots, and the successful ones can stick around,
Yeah.
you know, like like a Fathom events but on steroids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 I could see that happening. Yeah. I mean, especially with the major studios kind of floundering a bit with their content. Yeah. I mean, especially. especially if the indie movies are quality content. You know.
Yes. Okay. I think my last bold prediction: we have seen peak movie budget for a while
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
because you didn't necessarily need to spend 250 million to make Thor: Love and Thunder,
Yeah.
and if they had spent 150 million or even 100 million, if they had reined in the budget a bit, that would have been an enormous success for them instead of being maybe break even.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the number of $200 million budget movies is going to decrease in
Yep.
the next couple of years. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we might not see the big difference next year because we're still dealing with things that were greenlit and in production in 2020, 2021,
Right.
2022 or so on.
Hmm.
But I think we might see more of mid-level movies.
Yeah. Which we've had a serious lack of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy Ninja also, I'd wondered how you had all this problem, like how there are so few, how are these VFX companies so horribly abused?
Hmm.
And then you realize, holy shit, 439 or 438 original shows with multiple episodes or possibly movie-length things on Netflix in a single calendar year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah.
And the basically the money that's just like in the comic book industry, the money that's been in there on the promise of, oh, we'll make money someday,
Hmm.
time to pay the piper.
Yeah. 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 All right. Well, I think we're ready to put 2022 in the can.
Yep. Get out of here, you.
Yes.
Nobody likes you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.